The Houston Rockets are currently 9 games into the 2023-2024 NBA season, and they have gotten off to an outstanding start. Now, it looks like the Houston Rockets were heading for turmoil once again as they started this season with a 3-game losing streak, but they have completely flipped the switch as of late. Now, the Houston Rockets have a record of 6-3, and they're on a 6-game winning streak, and their last win came at home against the defending champs, a very impressive down to the wire win. Now, when we look at the Houston Rockets, obviously I think we have to point back to that offseason and look at some of the acquisitions that they made this year, bringing in Coach Ime Udoka, bringing in Dillon Brooks, and bringing in Fred VanVleet. Now, these three guys have a lot of things in common. Number one, they have veteran presence, and number two, they all have a defensive identity. Coach Ime Udoka, when he had his run with the Boston Celtics, they were the number one team in defense. They actually had a very historical defense in the second half of that season. Fred VanVleet has a defensive identity, came to a team that was known for playing some pretty stifling defense, the Toronto Raptors, and we all know how Dillon Brooks gets down on the defensive side of the ball. So that, with that being said, I think coming into this season, defense was going to be an emphasis for the Houston Rockets, and that's exactly what the case has been so far. We look at the Houston Rockets last season, they were one of the worst defensive teams in all of the NBA. I'm pretty sure teams looked forward to playing the Houston Rockets because they knew they were going to be able to get whatever they want. However, this year things are completely different as the Houston Rockets, through the first 9 games of their NBA season, they've been a top 5 defense as they rank number 5 in the league in defensive rating. And I made a lot of Houston Rockets videos during the offseason over the summer, and I'm really hoping some of you guys who watch those videos find your way back to this one, because we really spoke this into existence for this Houston Rockets team. We talked about how this season they're going to be so much better on the defensive side of the ball, and that's exactly what's happening right before our very eyes. And before we get into what's making this defense so special, I just want to point out that the Houston Rockets, for majority of this short NBA season, they've been without Tari Eason, and you can definitely make a case that he's the best overall defender on this team. And in my opinion, I think he is. And I was just glancing at his numbers before this video, and he's averaging 7 rebounds. Well, 6.7. I'm rounding up to 7, but he's averaging damn near 7 rebounds in just 16 minutes of play. So I think that is very impressive, and I think this defense is going to be more tenacious once he gets back into the lineup. But nonetheless, looking at this Houston Rockets defense and what's making it so much better, we have to go back to those 2 acquisitions, and also the acquisition of Coach Ime Udoka as well. But getting Dillon Brooks and getting Fred VanVleet has been so beneficial on the defensive side of the ball, and the reason is that you have 2 guys. You can pick one of these guys on the point guard of the team, aka the facilitator, the guy that runs the offense, and the guy that usually takes him is Fred VanVleet. And if you watch Fred VanVleet play, even dating back in his years in Toronto, he played under Kyle Lowry, so I'm pretty sure that's where he learned a lot of his defensive tricks, because Fred VanVleet, he is a pest on the defensive side of the ball. There's so many valuable things he brings defensively, being able to pick his man up full court. He's constantly reaching without picking up fouls. We all know how annoying that is when playing basketball in real life, and he's just an overall great perimeter defender. And then he has little tricks from being a veteran in the NBA. When he is matched up against bigger guys, he has very fast hands. He can a lot of times make that matchup. He can make that matchup more favorable for him because he gets a lot of strips. So giving Fred VanVleet and having him guard that guy that's running the offense, that's very beneficial. And then you get to put Dillon Brooks on the opposing team's best wing scorers. So usually the shooting guard or the small forward, Dillon Brooks is going to take on that assignment. And I honestly love the competitiveness that Dillon Brooks plays with. I know after that whole fiasco with LeBron James, he took a lot of slack from a lot of people, but that's just him being a competitor. And I think, he did take it a little far sometimes, but he is a young player in the NBA, and I definitely think it's something that he's going to learn. It's something that he is going to learn from. And Dillon Brooks has been sensational for the Houston Rockets this year. He's averaging around 12-13 points per game, and he's been so efficient. 50% from the field, 50% from the three-point line, and he has one of the highest true shooting percentages in the NBA. And also when the Houston Rockets signed Dillon Brooks, they took a lot of slack because he had an inefficient year of shooting the basketball last season. And I know we're very early into this season, but the way he's shooting the basketball right now is a great sign for the Houston Rockets. And the cool part, having these two guys take on those defensive assignments, Fred VanVleet taking the point guard, the facilitator of the offense, and Dillon Brooks taking on the opposing team's best perimeter scorer, it makes everyone else's jobs a lot easier. For example, Alperen Sengun, he's been a much more active defensive center this year, and he's able to be a lot more aggressive because he doesn't have guys constantly getting blown past him. Same thing with Jalen Green, and Jalen Green, he still is getting hunted for pick and rolls. We know that's the biggest form of offense right now, trying to find that mismatch, and often teams still try to go at Jalen Green, but Jalen Green is giving an effort on the defensive side of the ball, and he's very fast and athletic, so not too many worries there for the Houston Rockets. And he's not a shorter basketball player. Jalen Green is around 6'5", 6'6", so it's still not the best option to go and try to go at him. And also, when teams do that to the Houston Rockets, they play great help defense. They have a lot of great help defenders, and we haven't even started talking about Jabari Smith, who was drafted so high part of because his versatility on the defensive side of the ball and his ability to rebound. So looking at the Houston Rockets, I definitely think that's been the biggest change for them this season, is the way that they're able to go at it on the defensive side of the ball. And another thing that I find interesting about this Houston Rockets team is the type of season that Jalen Green has had so far. So the Houston Rockets, we established that they have a top 5 defense, but what's really cool about this team and what's great for them is that they also have a top 10 offense as well. Right now, the Houston Rockets, they rank 10th in the league in total offensive rating. So I brought up Jalen Green. I also looked at his numbers before the game, and so far this season, he hasn't been playing that great offensively. Now, I don't think this is a bad thing for the Houston Rockets. I actually think this is a great thing for this team because we talked about them being on a 6-game winning streak. They've beaten some pretty good teams. Their last win has came against the Denver Nuggets, the defending champs, and your best player, your best scorer, he's gotten off to a slow start this season. And right now, Jalen Green is averaging 19 points per game, but he's doing it on 40% shooting from the field and 40% shooting from the three-point line. So it's good to see that his trade ball is falling, just not getting everything inside the lines right now, but I definitely expect that to change for Jalen Green. We also talked about him over the summer, how this is going to be a big time year for him because he has players around him now finally to make his job a lot easier. So it could be as early as the Houston Rockets next game. Jalen Green, he may start to get hot, and when we see him start to get hot, man, this team is going to look even scarier. And then you just have other guys pitching in to help make this a top 10 offense in the NBA. We have Fred VanVleet, who's been a great job facilitating this year. The Houston Rockets are one of the best teams in the NBA of not turning the basketball over, so we can chalk that up to Fred VanVleet doing a great job. And they're also last in pace right now, so they're playing a lot in the half court. And then Alperen Sengun, he's averaging 19 points per game, around 5-6 assists per night. He's been spectacular. We talked about Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks has probably been the biggest surprise offensively for the Houston Rockets, just because he's shooting at such an efficient level right now, shooting at 50% from the field and the three-point line on 13 points per game. I don't think the Houston Rockets could have asked for more from Dillon Brooks, factoring the way that he's playing defense as well. So the Houston Rockets, man, I'm pretty sure the Houston Rockets, they all seen this coming, man. I seen this coming, and it looks like we were all right because this team is tenacious on the defensive side of the basketball, and they're still being great offensively. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe. Subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.